Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Being an Engineer podcast. Our guest today is Tony Simas, an accomplished business leader with over 20 years of experience driving transformational growth across industries like manufacturing, life sciences, automotive, and technology. With a proven ability to harness technology and strategic marketing for sustainable business development, Tony has revitalized underperforming markets, introduced innovative solutions, and cultivated thriving teams globally. From spearheading growth turnarounds for $100 million business units to integrating cutting-edge SaaS and AI solutions, he exemplifies the fusion of technical expertise and leadership finesse. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
So how did you first get into STEM? What was your journey like?
Well, it started in high school. I had a AP chemistry class, and the grading was all on a curve. So I had more labs than I had quizzes, and we could turn in the lab as many times as we wanted to until we did it right. And I said, wow, this is fantastic. It continued into college to be similar to that. My first general chemistry class was so difficult, 38% was an A. So I was like, wow, I don't have to learn everything and I can get an A. But what really drove it was I wanted to be a lawyer when I started in college, and I looked at all of the different degrees that I could get, and I found that a STEM degree was actually the most flexible degree, because if I was a communications major or political science major and became an attorney, or decided not to become an attorney rather, then I would have limited options, probably become a teacher or try to wedge my way in somewhere else. But with a STEM degree, companies are willing to hire you to be a salesperson. You can go into a lab, which you can't do if you have a literature degree or something to that effect. Or you can work your way into business, which is what I ended up doing.
Fascinating. Okay, so you get this degree in STEM, and then eventually you make your way from chemistry to business leadership. What was the draw into that intersection of technology and strategy?
Yeah, I always wanted to be in business. I wasn't a big lab person. It was a very, very difficult job for me to do, being in the lab. So I was always looking out creatively for commercial aspects of the chemistry and how customers were using it and how we could bring customers together and to leverage our products better. So basically, I did the lab job, I did applications marketing job, and then everybody said, Tony, you've really got to do some sort of business, and selling is a good way to step into it. So I got a sales job selling specialty chemicals to food and beverage manufacturing and doing operational efficiencies as well, operations consulting within those manufacturing facilities.
And I guess you learned that you liked that.
Yeah, it really pulled together. And we even talked about the technologies that were involved, but I started selling an IoT product in 2005 to these CPG manufacturers. And it was actually with a landline, telephone modem was in it. And then it pulled all the data and made a chart. And, we looked into, I had carte blanche in a sense to sell it, with my chemicals or with equipment. And, the thing that excited me most about it was having my customers integrated into their daily lives and their routines so that my customers would go to a new manufacturing plant and demand it rather than just having nice to have a PowerPoint slide with a pie chart on it that you kind of look at and go, okay, yeah, all right. We used chemicals and water and energy and time.
As you got into selling initially, what were some things that surprised you about selling that you hadn't been on your radar?
Wow. So many different things. I think the first thing when you start selling, you think like, oh wow, I've got this really cool product that I'm very passionate about. and you get out there and you try to get everybody to start using it. And I think that's like the biggest aha is your excitement about a product doesn't necessarily translate over to the person who you're smiling at.
And what did you do to overcome that?
I think there are a few things, 3 things. One is I got mentors. I asked as many questions as I could and watched how other people were doing things. And I was quiet, but then asked questions. And then I tried my best to embrace sales frameworks. There's all types, counselor, salesperson, the Sandler method, just a number of books on sales, right? How to do it. You really got to find the sales method that resonates best with you. And I frankly, to this day, even though I've been through so many sales trainings and had sales managers and, guided sales teams, I have a sales coach who helps me on a weekly basis so that I can help, bring my customers along on a journey when they tell me they have a need, bring them to the solution.
We're going to go to a specific experience that you had in your career where you were able to reduce data entry by 70%, which on its face, maybe not the sexiest thing in the world, but when you think about it, reducing any process, the effort required for any process by 70%, that's huge. That's a huge accomplishment. Apparently, you faced some resistance in doing so, which is interesting because as a business leader, if anyone I was working with could reduce an effort by 70%, I would be very excited about this. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the resistance that you faced and how that changed your approach to implementing change.
Yes, and I think you actually nailed in on it. You said as a business leader, if people could reduce their energy by 70%, I would love that, right?
Right.
But as the person that you're asking to change, they won't love that the same way.
Mm.
And, my first job out of college was watching paint dry and then taking notes on it. And then at the end of the day, we'd go and type the notes into the computer, do the data entry. And so I said, hey, there's handheld devices. We can just write directly into it, then plug it to the computer, do a little editing and be done. We can go get a coffee. We can read a trade magazine. We can do anything. And the ironic thing there, the thing that was difficult for people to kind of understand, especially in this world of thinking about somebody doing data entry and paint dry, the whole world kind of thinks that's the, quintessential job people aren't going to have fun doing, wouldn't want to do. But there are actually people that love that. And if you ask them to stop doing it, they're going to get nervous and concerned, and they're not going to do it. So you're asking them, even though you're thinking you're giving them 70% of their time back, that's, something they love to do. It's like say you love playing golf. And I said to you, hey, it takes you 10 hours to play golf. I can reduce that to 2. Would you like that?
That's a really interesting insight. So A, it was something that at least some of these people genuinely enjoyed doing. But B, I think that was a really important point you made, that maybe some of them saw it as a threat, right? If you're taking 70% of my job away, what does that mean? Am I going to get laid off and one person is going to take over what previously took 3 people? And am I that one person, or am I the other 2 that get laid off?
Right. You spin out in a lot of ways on that one.
Yeah. So how did that change your approach to implementing change?
Well, through my career, it's made me focus on what are people's superpowers, what do they love to do, and what is on the customer side, what do customers love to do, so both internally and externally. And once you understand that, then you try to understand how change you want to implement will impact it. So one of my next jobs or after that was, hey, Tony, come out and look at this. We've got this SaaS product. It's got IoT components to it, services around it. It's really cool. It's forward looking. It'll help our customers figure out how to eliminate waste in their manufacturing plant. And it'll save them time, energy, and money. And nobody's buying it. and nobody wants to sell it. And so to turn that around, I leveraged that early experience to go to the customer and figure out what is their driver, because wouldn't their driver be to save money? Well, yeah, but if it's not coming right away, they don't want to wait 2 years for it. So we actually figured out something that we could tell them immediately from the software that made an immediate impact on something that they cared about. And that drove them to buy it. And then from the people perspective, from the salespeople's perspective, their passion was going in to their customers and finding operational efficiencies and savings. And so if you tell them, we're going to take that away and we're going to tell you what the savings is, that's going to make them uncomfortable. You're taking away a piece of their job they like. So we changed the narrative around it to say, instead of telling you what's wrong, we're going to tell you, hey, I think this is wrong. Can you go look at XYZ and verify that it's wrong? And then the person was able to go through the motions of actually doing what they love, but they didn't have to go, but they had an almost guaranteed outcome of something was incorrect. Whereas when they went through those motions before, they could watch something that could work perfectly. And so you kind of get your time savings there, but you get it in a way that is not as much as if they just implemented whatever you told them to do, but also mitigated a lot of risks of you being wrong and really engaged the team.
Nice. So you're a consultant. Tell us a little bit about what a day in the life looks like. I'm sure it's super different, right? No one day is the same. In fact, you're just telling me before we started recording about an urgent request that is coming up right away. I'm sure you're getting things like this thrown at you all the time, but what is it like being a consultant and working with so many different companies?
It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's just, you get to take a third-party, non-objective view of what folks are doing and then help them figure out a way to change and improve what that issue or challenge they're having is. A lot of it's sales too, because I've got to talk to as many people as I can and uncover what their challenges are. And like we mentioned before, that in sales and transformation, just because you see something happening that doesn't seem efficient to you doesn't mean that somebody's internalized that. So part of being a consultant is helping show people what the financial or personal impact is of a problem and then building out a solution to get there. And so that's like the second part of my day. And then the third part of the day is, once they've seen the solution, they ask us to change it a little bit. And then we try to figure out a way to do it that works with the client. And then we execute. And we actually help go through the process.
What do you think is one of the hardest parts about being a consultant?
The hardest part about being a consultant? I think it's the uncertainty of the next project, when it's going to come, and making sure that you've balanced out time in the project so you haven't taken on too many projects, so you can manage that balance of discovery work with clients and actually doing projects. I think that's the most difficult thing, that getting that balance right and your team.
That sounds a lot like our business, finding that the balance of not too much work, not too little work, that Goldilocks zone right in between, and having the right team members. Speaking of our work, I've got a selfish question I want to ask you here. You've been involved in some digital transformation involving SaaS and AI. And we have a product right now that we're selling. It's a motion control product that is developed for non-programmers. So if you don't know how to program, but you need to create automated motion, this is the product for you. It's super easy, drag and drop, visual interface, no code solution. And we are not doing a SaaS model right now. We're just selling the software as part of the hardware. And I thought this might be an interesting case study to go over, and I can get some free coaching from you and the listeners can get some interesting information and a peek into behind the scenes how something like this would be handled, because I'm sure there are plenty of engineers out there who have their own ideas, their own products, and they're thinking about these questions as well. So frankly, we don't really know how to do SaaS. So we're just bundling the software along with the hardware, but eventually we'd like to get to a SaaS-based model. What are some of the obstacles that you expect, not just Pipeline, but any organization who is moving towards SaaS in the future are going to encounter? And what can we do now to prepare for that?
Well, I think the key is adoption and making sure that the customer is adopting and integrating their product into their daily routine as something that they're using. Because if it's just something they buy and then use it, once or twice a year, or once a month to program a machine, then that doesn't lend itself to the SaaS model. It's got to be a regular thing. And there's a lot of precedent now too to turn everything into SaaS, right? Like the car manufacturers turning the seat warmer into a SaaS model. So pay as you go. So you have a little bit of that, but I think that it's that adoption, using it every day, balancing out there's multiple pricing models, and I can send you a document on SaaS pricing models too. But that's another way to look at it is like, if how would I charge for this service? And is the customer getting value over and over again? I would say that there's also a consideration of, am I regularly improving this product so that the customer is getting new and new features? And I see that as a blessing and a curse. Like if you can regularly put out new features and the customers are excited about them, then they'll kind of happily continue to pay. But you could also overdo it. And I'm thinking about like a webinar, video conferencing software where they just changed and moved where the buttons were and how the system operated all the time. And, it got embarrassing. One time they changed it on the phone and they had a pop-up of you, a video of you pop up. And I saw that pop up one time, and I was like, I was sitting outside on my porch on this conference call with 300 people, and I saw not on my desk, and I saw the pop up, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the call," because it popped up and it showed me my face. So I immediately slammed the button, and then boom, I'm sitting there, unshaven on the call in front of 300 people because I had actually said, yeah, so this. You got to be careful with these changes. If you've got a video conferencing software, don't change the button, move it. Yeah. So
that's a really interesting point that you bring up. It seems like there is this trend towards moving everything to SaaS. What other considerations are there when deciding, is it a good idea to move to SaaS, or should I just, sell, this is the price, you buy the software and you own it for whatever, forever, or for a certain number of years or something? What other considerations might you contemplate?
Yeah, I would look at your ultimate goal, right? What is your 5-year plan, 10-year plan with this software, and then walk your way back from there. You mentioned like, it's something that would have to, be renewed every 5 years. That's actually a SaaS model, just with a crazy pricing model. But you could also build it out and say like, it's just not going to be supported after 3 years, right? And that could be your, way to get there. So it really is more of a focus on what is your growth strategy? What is your growth goal? What is your growth strategy? And what do you need to do in order to get there? And I think that's going to guide you more so than trying to boil the ocean and figure out all of the issues. Start from the end, make a hypothesis. I want to sell $1 million of this software in 5 years, and then work your way back and say, what has to be true in order for that to happen?
Yeah, great. Very smart. All right, I'm going to take a short break here and share with everyone that the Being an Engineer podcast is brought to you by Pipeline Design and Engineering, where we don't design pipelines, but we do help companies develop advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services. You can learn more at teampipeline.us. The podcast is also sponsored by The Wave, an online platform of free tools, education, and community for engineers. Learn more at thewave.engineer. And we're speaking with Tony Simas today. So Tony, you've been involved helping companies with creating market entry strategies. First of all, what is market entry? And then what are some of the critical factors that companies should be considering before expanding into new markets?
Well, I think that previous question was a great segue into it, right? Basically, when you think about market entry strategy, you're thinking about how do I achieve a goal? And your software is a great example of that. It's market entry is thinking about where you want to go and how you can get there. A lot of people, you can do this one of two ways. One, you start with a product, like you already have a product, so you want to do a market entry study for that product. Or you could say, I can make software. What product should I enter the market with? And what would be the most attractive product to develop? Most people start with a product. So when you start with a product, you do similar to what I explained to you before, is you set a long-term goal. Some people call it a strategy, but at the end of the day, it's your goal is like financially, where do you want to be in a certain number of years? Also, I love to have goals that are focused on people within your company, your customer, or sustainability, ESG. We talked earlier about transformation and transforming people in software and leveraging business process transformation. I actually wrote a white paper about how to go from an idea to delivering the value functionally within adopting a new technology or making a change in your company. So the market entry framework is very similar to that. You set your goals, and then you put together a number of metrics. So I just list them out for you. You do a market analysis, a value proposition, product positioning, define where the product's position is the market related to your customers and the customer segment you want to go after. You build out a go-to-market strategy. That's your overall approach, the key tactics for launching your product or service, what you're going to do, when and how. And then the sales enablement, right? Making sure your sales team is on board. They have the tools, training necessary. Building out a marketing campaign. This is when you call that branding agency and say, hey, can you make this thing look really great and appealing to these folks? Can you put this online on a website and get it SEO, the description of it SEO optimized so it shows up on Google? And then customer success and support. Figuring out how you're going to ensure that your customers are having a positive experience. Then, again, this is kind of at the beginning and at the end, your metrics and performance tracking. So there's two metrics that I like the best. One is KPIs. What is the volume? What is the margin? What is the total price, total value of what you're selling? Those are lagging indicators of success. Leading indicators of success are more like OKRs, objectives and key results. I'm going to attend 10 trade shows, and I'm going to accomplish this at those trade shows.
Switching gears again a little bit back into a manufacturing environment. So you've been involved helping companies integrate IoT and AI into manufacturing environments. What are some ways that you have seen AI and IoT increase operational efficiencies in manufacturing? And like, what are some kind of tactical nuggets that you can share with engineers who are listening to this, especially the manufacturing engineers, the process engineers?
Well, there's some really cool things you can do with AI now, where you can track what you're doing in the manufacturing plant, either through actual data or qualitatively just entering in your insights. I've seen some really cool software that will, as a quality person, you can be walking through and describing what you're seeing, and then it'll change it into quantified data. I think the other piece with IoT, you've got a sensor where you're tracking something that's happening, and you have to AI is going to have trouble having context around what that device is doing. So you're going to have to build an ecosystem around articulating parameters or trying to help it understand everything that's occurring. I think my insight here, and the thing that I found most challenging, is that it's not an easy button, and it's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. You're not gonna. It's not a silver bullet. If you put a device in a plant, start tracking it, you hook it up to AI, it's not gonna start telling you that you have a preventative maintenance opportunity or something isn't occurring properly. You've got to feed it a ton of context. A lot of manufacturing is very messy. They haven't, you could use AI maybe to clean up the tags in your manufacturing plant. I don't think this is something that's typically done, but if you look across multiple manufacturing plants, or even the same one, a temperature sensor might be labeled TE15, and then a different temperature sensor, whether it's the same equipment or not, could be labeled C15 or C20, like a totally different naming nomenclature, and you don't know what it is. So you've just got messy data, and I think the insight here is, how can you leverage AI to clean your data, and then how can you level set expectations that you need to collect data and see what's actually going to break before AI can start learning about it. If you have an aircraft engine and it's about to fail, there's probably a multitude of ways that engine would fail, and AI isn't just going to guess that.
First step is cleaning up your data.
Yes. Clean it, track it, feed it.
So you've lived in a variety of different places globally and have had experiences with a lot of different cultures. I'm curious, have there been any stories or experiences that you can share where you experienced something that was very culture specific and it affected the way that you worked with that organization?
Oh, okay. Yes, I lived in Japan for a couple of years when I was growing up, and I've been in a lot of countries all over the world. I lived in 11 different places, or 12 different places. But I think my biggest culture shock was moving from New York to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there, the way that people are very direct in New York and then passive in Minneapolis. So I really needed to learn how to be quiet, listen, and figure out how to ask questions better to get to an outcome that I was looking for. Where in New York, I would just go to the leadership and say, XYZ is wrong. In certain cultures, you just can't say that. You can't do it. I was surprised so Minnesota, I think the learning too is, whenever I go into a new culture, I really try to read about the business practices. You can get little books. When we moved to Japan, my dad had little books where you could read up on it. Now there's also on YouTube, there's a really cool guy that's English, but he lives in Germany, and he says, in Germany we say this way, and that's super insightful. And although it's humorous, it's important to know. If you ask some people, how are you doing in America, that's like saying hello. But in other places, you say, how are you doing? That's a deep question. They want to share. So you got to be ready for that.
I never know how to answer that question. How are you doing? Do you really want to know how I'm doing, or are we just saying, I'm fine? How about you? I'm fine. Okay. It kind of bugs me, actually, it seems, let's either ask it and really give deep and meaningful answers, or just do away with it at all. But it's like, it's part of the culture, right? How you doing? Good. How you doing? Good. Okay. Now we can actually have a conversation about whatever we're trying to talk about. Anyway, pet peeve of mine.
I think you should just jump in and go for it. Building rapport is so important. And if somebody asks you, just honestly tell them. Like, yeah, you can leave out the stuff that's very super personal, but tell them and ask them. And that builds trust, and it helps people open up, especially if you're going to have a business conversation. If people feel like you know them and appreciate what they're going through, they'll share much more.
I think a lot of that comes down to like situational awareness and just being aware of the context in different situations. When you moved from New York to Minneapolis, were you intrinsically just aware very quickly that the culture was different there and you had to take different approaches? Or at some point did someone pull you aside and was like, hey, Tony, you're kind of abrupt and direct. You need to tone it down. Things are different here. I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, totally was pulled over to the side. I didn't think to read a booklet about going to Minneapolis.
Interesting. Yeah, right. It seems like the same place, right? I mean, we're both in the U.S.
Yeah. It set me back. It set me back at least a year because, folks were uncomfortable talking to me because I would tell it straight. And it might not be right or it would be right, but it didn't matter because you're just abrasive. Right? Nobody likes somebody who's abrasive in general.
That is fascinating. I mean, set you back a year. We talk sometimes, we have this volunteer program, CAD Club, and one of the things that we tell these young students, middle school and high school age students that come into our office and learn to use CAD, among other things, the first class we go over soft skills and how, you might have the best technical skills in the world, but if your soft skills aren't good, if you don't know how to read a room, if you don't know how to communicate with people, there's only so far you can go. Whereas if your technical skills are pretty good, good enough, but you have really good people skills, there's almost no limit to how far you can go. And that right there is such a tangible example of what we talk about, just knowing how to talk to people.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use that in CAD Club, if you don't mind. I'm going to take that example and share it with them as a real world example. I won't use your name.
That's okay. I mean, it really, the great thing that came out of it is a huge different level of emotional intelligence and empathy. Empathy really comes from that.
Yeah. All right. One more question and we'll wrap things up here. What advice would you give to younger engineers, leaders, folks in STEM who are in, who are going down that path of engineering, R&D, STEM, technology, those areas?
Be open, emotionally intelligent, like you mentioned. Learn how to communicate and get a mentor and a supporter at your company, and just ask as many questions as possible. People love to ask questions. Ask them for advice. They love to give advice, and you'll learn so much that way.
Terrific. Tony, thank you so much for being on the show today. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Aaron Moncur, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing advanced manufacturing processes, automated machines, and custom fixtures, complemented with product design and R&D services, visit us at teampipeline.us. To join a vibrant community of engineers online, visit thewave.engineer. Thank you for listening.